So before I start, I would like, of course, to thank the organization for accepting my paper, of course, and Professor Justin for being always so kind to answer my emails. And of course, my first language is not English, and all my work that I've done was in Portuguese, and all the sources I've read were in medieval Portuguese. So if there is anything you don't understand, because the translation is very hard to do, please let me know. In the end, I will try to explain the best that I can. And of course, thank everyone who's watching me, especially my professor Luis Miguel Duarte, who was the brain behind this and always helped me with my paleography skills. And with no further ado, I will start my presentation. So my work is about Jewish criminality in the reign of Dom João II of Portugal. And throughout my, for now, brief academic career, it seemed to me that Portuguese historiography reserved a rather reduced space for the Jew, and what we can retain from it turns out to be a repetition of stereotypes. Thus, the question arises, as a human being constantly the target of rejection and of prejudice that are mostly unfounded, many times created within the court itself, wouldn't a Jew have moments of revolt and violence? Due to the scarce information we have about the Jewish criminality, a subject that seems important to understand medieval society, I decided to address it, establishing a chronology of 10 years, focusing on the reign of King Don Juan II between the years of 1482 and 1492. The sources consulted to find out about legislation involving the medieval Jews were five: the Ordenações de Dom Duarte, Ordenações Afonsinas, Livro de Leis e Posturas, Livro das Posturas Antigas, as well as the Livro dos Pregos. We find not only anti-Semitic legislation, but also laws that benefited the Jews. The last were often revoked, which gives us the idea that medieval Portuguese law was extremely unstable. The base of this work was the analysis of pardon letters, as we can see on the left, and that's why it is so hard to translate for contemporary English, whose importance is explained by the amount of information we can extract from them in order to understand the different crimes, the name of the supplicant, his or her profession, the age, some family ties. We are also informed about the place of birth or residence. We learn about possible crime, in what context it took place, what the motives were, who and how many were the complainants. Finally, we learn about the court's decision. With regard to the Jews' court instance, it should be pointed out that they lived separated from the Christians in the judiciarias. As such, they had their own magistrates, a town council, and a court which met in synagogue. Jewish jurisdiction was different from that of the Christians, and this was maintained for both criminal and civil matters. The Jews had laws and rights which, although different from those of the dominant majority, were recognized by the crown. The most prominent figure was the chief rabbi, who, besides being a court official and close to the monarch, was the representative of the kingdom's Jews. When any question came up, it was the chief rabbi who would approach the king to settle disputes and present problems, as well as to make any requests. Don Fernando defined this figure as an intermediary between the Jews and the king, and it was in his power to summon the communes to general assemblies where they were represented by proxies. The Jews had three judicial bodies to which they could appeal in criminal cases: the local rabbis, who judged in the first instance, and after their decision, if one of the parties appealed, the decision would be up to the chief rabbi. Besides this one, the Jew could appeal to the jurors, and if the criminal cases were such that they could be appealed, they were not carried to term but would be judged in the last instance by the judges of the kingdom. Appeal to Christian magistrates was, however, forbidden. The evidence used in judicial matters was the oath and testimony. The last could be contested, however, if the crime was between Jews and Christians. The testimony of the Jew against the Christian was only valid if a Christian also testified. Initially, the testimony of Christians against Jews followed this order, but the law establishing it was repealed, and any testimony of Christians against Jews became valid according to canon law. Finally, in civil matters between Jews and Christians, when the Jew was accused, he was tried under his own law, the Talmudic law, and would swear on the Torah. Talmudic law does not provide for the death penalty, so maximum punishment is excommunication proposed by the rabbi of the commune and confirmed by the chief rabbi or his hearers. Criminal cases could only be tried by the crown criminal judge, even if the Jew was the one who committed the crime. Crimes of blasphemy against the Christian religion were judged by the judge of the House of the Civil, and prisoners would not go to the Judiaria but to the county jail. The rabbis would have power to fine, order corporal punishment, degrade, or cast excommunication. The Jew could appeal the sentence. Crimes were then tried at Bet Din, which met in synagogue, and it was presided over by the rabbis and the elder men of the community. The study of Jewish criminality was essentially done, as I said before, through the analysis of pardon letters, which revealed the transgressions committed by or against Jews. However, this documentation is incomplete, and such, the conclusions drawn may be biased. We must bear in mind that we only have knowledge of the crimes forgiven and that escaped the action of justice, and not of those who suffered the maximum penalty. We do not know what penalties would fall on supplicant, but by analyzing the ordinances, we can get an idea of them, but we do not know if they were applied or not. At the same time, we do not have access to the cases judged by the courts of Judiarias, the Bet Din, which would be essential, not only to know what penalties were applied through Talmudic law, but also to better understand the criminality of and against Jews. In the chancellery of John II, the Jew is most of the time the accused and not the victim. Among dozens of attempted attacks, only 6 of these letters mention the Christian as the one who physically attacks the Jew. Nevertheless, some of these aggressions, according to the accounts that reaches us, happen without explanation. An example of one that has a motivation is about Estevão Nunes, who tells us he had an argument with Isaac Escalão, a Jew who lived in the village of Portel, about some shoes that he did not want to give him. After 3 months, he found the Jew in the village and gave him 5 or 6 strokes with a stick, which caused the Jew to show some swelling and to get angry with him. An example of a crime with no explanation: the Jew is on the road going safely under the guard of golden hours, the king of course, generally at night, when the Christian attacks him violently. The wounds are usually serious. Samuel Vizinho, a Jew, accused Álvaro da Cunha, a nobleman, saying that while riding his horse, the supplicant had forced him to get down from it and had beaten him up many times and then him and done him other oppressions to him with the intention of robbing. Returning to the Jewish aggressor, most of the conflicts take place within the community itself, that is, between Jews. Among the pardon letters analyzed that concern this type of crime, 26 are aggressions between Jews. Mosem ben Olam, a Jew, argued with Marco, also a Jew. So, one night, Mosem assaulted him with armed men to beat him, giving him a few stabs with a sword, doing everything on purpose. Only rarely do we find Jews assaulting Christians, with the exception of Judas do Porto, accused of assaulting Pedro Esteves with a slap on the face, and Museu Cominiante, accused of mutilating a finger of João Alves, a tailor in the city of Porto. Salmão de Almeida was accused of stabbing Lourenço Domingos, a Christian, on the chest. Of the dozens of attacks between Jews known to us, never do we know the motive. However, in several cases we know that the act was premeditated. This is the case of Abraham Lerba and a Visiboa, his wife, who assaulted Antão, another Jew, on purpose, giving him a large open and bloody wound on the head, and the Visiboa took him by the hair and punched him. Let us move on to sexual crimes. The victim is always a woman, whether the attackers are Jewish or Christian. The offender usually enters the woman's home at night. She may or may not be alone, and the rape is, in all cases, followed by physical aggression. We found a pardon later about a Christian who effectively rapes a Jewish woman, and 2 attempted rapes that were not consummated. Pedro was accused by Dora of trying to rape her daughter. In all the other cases, it is Jewish men who commit or attempt to commit a crime. I believe that the phenomenon is easy to explain. Contact between Jewish men and Jewish women was easier than between Jewish women and Christian men. If Jews did not live apart in Judaism, the number will certainly be different. However, although we have cases of Christian men sexually assaulting Jewish women, we do not know of any case of Jewish men doing this to Christian women, perhaps because the punishment was too harsh. Sexual relations between people of different faiths were also condemned by the Alphonsine ordinances, and although they did not appear frequently in chancellery of King John II, they did occur. Pedro Gil, for instance, is accused in an inquest of sleeping with an unmarried Jewish woman named Jamila, who had become pregnant with a child he then killed. Judas Marques was arrested in the town of Setúbal for being accused by Jacob Durães of sleeping with his wife. The Jew was often accused of acting against God, practice heresy and blasphemy. As to the former, we have three male Jews accused of disowning Saint Paul, Saint Peter, of disowning God and disowning our Lord and his saints, respectively. The crime of blasphemy was much more common than heresy. This usually occurred when a Christian and a Jew were at a disagreement. Isaac Bar Rosque, when collecting the rent from a man from Torrão, who was a debtor to the chancellery, the complainant had told him that before handing over the money to him, the Jew should first see God, to which the suppliant replied that first he should see the devil. Mestre Abraão was also accused of blasphemy. When he felt that Rodrigo Llanos doubted his abilities as a physicist, he told him that he would cure him of his illness and that if he couldn't, his gods wouldn't either. Thefts are usually frequent. Vasco Llanos was accused of stealing 12 bushels of olive oil from Shem Tov Avrias. In the Jewish case, Judas Gagin stole a safe with jewelry and money from Messia Vasques, a Christian, but this crime was more common within the community itself. Samuel Peco was accused of breaking into the house of Esther Pinta, a Jewish woman, and had broken the lock on a door leading down to the chamber, and had entered and broken into a safe from which he had taken gold and silver jewels that might as well be 40 or 50,000 reais. The most common crime among Portuguese Hebrew community was undoubtedly escaping from jail. This was almost accompanied by extenuating justifications from what had happened. Isaac Serrano, for example, escapes from jail for fear of being locked up for a long time, and same happens with Isaac Verdugo. Attempted murders are one-sided. We do not know of any case of Jews trying to murder Christians, but the opposite happens. Rodrigo Alves had been imprisoned in the jail of Trás-os-Montes, accused of the murder of Junsa, a Jew. We do not know the motives for the murder or when it happened. As far as murders are concerned, it is the Jew who kills more Jews. One example, Isaac and Formosa assaulted Isaac Abeca and his wife, causing the last to lose a 3-month-old child. Among Jews, the biggest victim of this crime is women. Of the 4 letters that refer to it, 2 of them report a murder and an attempted murder against 2 women. Less common than all these crimes was sodomy. We have only one account of Jews accused of being sodomites. The letters do not go into great detail. It is only known that both Jews accused of sodomy escaped from prison. We have found pardon letters whose crime is to attack the morals of the other. In this case, most of these attacks happen between Jews. We have a curious example. Judah Manchuria, a resident in Setúbal, informs the king that Mencalado, together with 2 Christians, Luís Afonso and Rui Fernandes, defamed him to the kingdom's courts, saying that Judah was sleeping with Christian women, offering them jewelry in exchange, which is why he was imprisoned in Setúbal town prison. Women are rarely mentioned in the pardon letters, and when they are, it is usually as victims, with the exception of 4 cases. One of them is of witchcraft. A Visiboa, a Jewish woman, is accused of, together with Leonor Pires, a Christian, of practicing witchcraft against her husband by feeding him a cake so that he would please her and other things. The Christian then adds the following, that said Jewish took the melted lead with herbs and threw it in water and made a figure of a man and another of a woman and said prayers and words. In the remaining letters, the crime of which the Jewish women are accused is of having relations with married men and inducing witnesses. It is difficult through the sources we have consulted to affirm that the Jews were victims of a specific criminality. When Christians appear in the letters of pardon, they are usually accused of aggression against Hebrews. However, the number of cases is so low that it is difficult to conclude that this crime was common. However, there was a more frequent crime among Jews, assault within the community itself, rape of Jewish women, heresy and blasphemy, thefts and jailbreaks appear by the dozens. As I mentioned before, the aggression was generally violent and there were certainly motives behind it, since it is almost always stated that the aggression was done in revenge for something that had happened before. Finally, there is an aspect that I would like to underline. Throughout the multiple pardon letters analyzed, most of the accusations against Jews are made by Jews. I conclude with an example of this idea. Jacob Arrandin was accused by João de Nebra, was burnt alive in the town of Santarém for being a bad Christian and for inviting him to celebrate with him Jewish festivities such as the Passover of the Huts, and who had accepted from him money and many other things for the synagogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you have the floor, Idan. Okay, but can you give me please the host, because I have a presentation?
I think we already have. I'll check.
Yeah, that's right. Can you see it?
Yes, we see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Good morning or good afternoon.
You can put it in full page if you want.
Now it's in full page, not in full page?
You can put it even more in full page because you have but it's fine, it's fine.
No, in my computer in full, I try again.